So I wanted to kind of record a little bit about the inaugural address. And I'll share this video link with you in case you want to watch it, but you don't necessarily have to watch his inaugural address. Um, and the sound is not super great, but I do want to point out a couple of things here. First off, you have him saying, I will address them with a candor and a decision which the present situation of our people impels. This is preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure, as it has endured, will revive, and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. In every dark hour of our national life, a leadership of frankness and vigor has met with that understanding and support of the people themselves, which is essential to victory. And I am convinced that you will again give that support to leadership in these critical days. So you have him very clearly starting off saying, look, things aren't great. We're not going to pretend that things are better than they are, but we're not going to be afraid. We're going to meet this. We're going to meet this head on. Again, this idea of we're going to fight for a new deal. We're going to try to make a difference, right? And so you have him, kind of setting that standard. And he goes into kind of enumerating some of the challenges, that our common difficulties are material things, that housing values have shrunk, taxes have risen. You have a lack of income affecting the way government can function. The gold standard is frozen, so the money supply is frozen. Industry is frozen up. Farmers can't sell their stuff. Savings have disappeared, and tons of unemployed people, right? Only a foolish optimist can deny the dark realities, right? And yet our distress comes from no failure of substance. We are stricken by no plague of locusts, right? That we can get through this, right? Plenty is at our doorstep, but a generous use of it languishes in the very sight of the supply. In other words, we have things we can do, we just haven't been doing them. And he says primarily that this inability to use the resources we have at hand is because the rulers of the exchange of mankind's goods have failed through their own stubbornness and their own incompetence, have admitted their failure, and have abdicated. Practices of the unscrupulous money changers stand indicted in the court of public opinion, rejected by the hearts and minds of men. Talking about banks and the people that controlled the banking system, the stock market, those kinds of things. So those are the ones to blame for this crisis. They've tried, Hoover tried to fix it, but they have a failure of credit. They've only want to lend money. They don't want to create jobs. They have no vision. And when there is no vision, the people perish. Right? Yes, the money changers have fled from their high seats in the temple of our civilization. We may now restore that temple to the ancient truths that the measure of that restoration lies in the extent to which we apply social values more noble than mere monetary profit. In other words, we should value some things more than just the profit margin. So this idea of making money that dominated the 1920s is no longer justifiable. We have too many other issues that we need to take care of. Happiness lies not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. The joy, the moral stimulation of work no longer must be forgotten in the mad chase of evanescent profits. These dark days, my friends, will be worth all they cost us if they teach us that our true destiny is not to be ministered unto, but to minister to ourselves, to our fellow men. That very progressive idea that it's not about us making money and how much money can I make for myself, but how much can I help my fellow mankind, right? Recognition of that falsity of material wealth as the standard of success goes hand in hand with the abandonment of the false belief that public office and high political position are to be valued only by the standards of pride of place and personal profit. And there must be an end to conduct in banking and in business, which too often has given to a sacred trust the likeness of callous and selfish wrongdoing. Small wonder that confidence languishes, for it thrives on honesty, on honor, on sacredness of obligations, on faithful protection, on unselfish performance. Without them, it cannot live. Again, the banks, the money makers, they're the ones that have made these mistakes. Restoration calls, however, not for changes in ethics alone. The nation is asking for action and action now. And then he starts saying immediately, our greatest primary task is to put people to work. This is no unsolvable problem. If we face it wisely and courageously, it can be accomplished in part by direct recruiting by the government itself. Right? So again, the government's going to take action, treating the task of putting people to work as we would treat the emergency of a war. But at the same time, through this employment, accomplishing greatly needed projects to stimulate and reorganize the use of our great natural resources. Hand in hand with that, we must frankly recognize the overbalance in population in our industrial centers, and by engaging on a national scale in a redistribution, endeavor to provide a better use of the land for those best fitted for the land. So we're going to address agricultural problems too. We have to raise the values of our agricultural products. We have to do something about the foreclosure of homes and farms. It can be helped by insistence that the federal, the state, and the local governments act forthwith on the demand that their costs be dramatically reduced. It can be helped by the unifying of relief activities, which today are often scattered, uneconomical, and unequal. It can be helped by the national planning for and supervision of all forms of transportation and of communications and other utilities that have definitely public character. There are many ways in which it can be helpful, can be helped, but it can never be helped by merely talking about it. We must act, and we must act quickly. In our progress towards resumption of work, we have to have a strict supervision of banking and credit and investments. We have to put an end to speculation with other people's money, and we need an adequate but sound currency. So essentially, he's going to urge the new Congress to basically give assistance, right? We're going to spend some money, that he's going to restore world trade by an international economic readjustment, that he's going to essentially talk about an interdependence of America, that we're not just going to be each man for himself, that the United States is going to take its place on the global stage. We're not going to be quite as isolationist as we once were, and that we have to depend on each other, right? And that we're going to submit ourselves to this new progressive effort, pledging larger purposes that will bind upon us all a sacred obligation with a unity of duty hitherto evoked only in times of armed strife, right? And he goes on to say, that this will be hard. It'll be stressful. But he sees that he has, basically the constitutional duty to take these measures in hand, and to challenge Congress to take these actions, and kind of put forward a new type of national life. He says, we do not distrust the future of essential democracy. The people of the United States have not failed. In their need, they have registered a mandate that they want direct, vigorous action. They have asked for discipline and direction under leadership. They have made me the present instrument of their wishes. In the spirit of the gift, I take it, right? And so you have FDR clearly in his first inaugural address stating a progressive agenda of action, of expanded government, of regulation, of control, and clearly has the will of the people behind him. So I think that's one of kind of the interesting little details, is that he's very much kind of taking up that banner. And he's going to put things forward. And, you might consider, we have some candidates coming up for the 2020 election, consider how many of those might actually sound a little bit like this. Of course, it took the Great Depression to get people willing to accept this kind of action by the government after, 10 years of the supply side economics, and then you'd had the frustration with the progressive era. But now you have a complete full turn to progressivism with no reservations. This is absolutely what we're going to do. So one of the things you'll see first off is how in the first New Deal, he really tackles the economic components of the economy. So that's the bell. I have a class to go teach. So I will get this shared with you, and we'll talk to you later.